Every day I'm escorted out of Patrick's Park by a guard of honour on roller skates. But sure, I know all these children and know their fathers and mothers as well. But the Liberties is a great community of people. It's the sort of a place where sorrow in one house is sorrow in every house. And joy in one house is joy in every house. Everyone knows each other. And you'd be fed up saying hello and good morning and good evening to everyone as you pass through the streets. Margaret Alward's Holy Faith Convent, which she founded here in the Coombe around 1864. Margaret went on to found many convents, but this was the last one that was opened in Dublin in her lifetime. She died at Glasnevin at the Mother House on the 11th of October 1889. J.C. Parks are nearly as old as the Coombe itself. In 1845, William Parks advertised, "We're token makers, we're medal makers, we're dice sinkers, we're button makers, we're engineers, we're brass founders, and we're coffin furniture manufacturers." Jemmy Hope's shop, the Temple Patrick weaver who came to Dublin and had a shop here in the Liberties of Dublin. On his tombstone are the words, "One of nature's noblest works, an honest man." Jemmy was the lover of Ireland and the lover of Ireland's poor. This is the site of the old Weavers' Hall. It's a pity they didn't keep that old building. They could have turned it into a Weavers' Museum. St. Nicholas Without and St. Luke's was consecrated on the 7th of October 1716 and unfortunately closed its doors on the 19th of September 1975. Inside the church is a beautiful memorial to the Huguenots. Newmarket and the Red Line Inn. Bang Bang, Lord Dudley's favourite public house. The Newmarket was a market at one time for the selling of vegetables. There was also a police station in Newmarket. And of course it was also the place where that unfortunate girl, Honor Bright, who was murdered in the Dublin mountains, lived in Dublin. I'm walking along with the gutter at Chambers Street, and today it's rainwater. But on the 18th of June, 1875, it was whiskey coming from the blazing warehouse of Larry Malone. And when the fire brigade came, they couldn't put water on the blazing whiskey, and the whiskey rolled out down along the gutter here. And the poor people of Dublin got down and drank it. And 13 of them died from drinking the poisoned whiskey coming down through the gutter in Chambers Street. Larry Malone's warehouse was burned out, and so was a portion of Cork Street and Brickfield Lane, and of course Chambers Street and RD Street. The fire brigade dug trenches across the road to stop the fire from spreading any further down through the city. Isn't it terrible the way they're letting the inner city of Dublin fall into rack and ruin? And I suppose the speculators come along then and put up their office blocks, instead of putting up nice little cottages and houses for the people of the Liberties. This was the Tenthers' Fields. It was here the Huguenot weavers came and gave their names to Weaver Square and Cow Parlour, which was really Coupalure, and a corruption into Cow Parlour. But they lived in their little houses mainly around Chambers Street and RD Street and Weaver Square, and came out into the open fields here to do their weaving. Now, when they were weaving, the cloth needed a certain amount of wetting with soils, and then it needed a certain amount of drying. So in the wet weather, the weavers, of course, were washed out and couldn't dry out their cloth. Today, I notice bees making honey, where weavers wove poplins and silks and satins and what have you. The last weaver of the Liberties was a man by the name of Padraig Bratnock, who worked in Elliott's before it closed down. I'm in the grounds of the Sisters of Mercy in Cork Street. The building behind me is the old stove tenter house, founded and financed by Thomas Pleasance. The weavers had petitioned the Lord Mayor in Meath for a place to dry their cloth, but no one did anything about it. And Thomas Pleasance came up with a plan, and not only with a plan, but with the money to put the plan into action. And his plan was the building of the stove tenter house, where the weavers could come in from the tenter fields and dry their cloth. There were 4 stoves in the basement, and you can still see the markings on the wall today where the iron bars went through, holding the cloth tight and letting the heat come up through a grill type of grid flooring. Thomas Pleasance was a Carlow man. Came to Dublin, was educated at Trinity College, was left quite a bit of wealth by his father, and became the director of many companies. In his lifetime, he gave over £100,000 away to charity. He founded the Pleasance Asylum in Camden Street, and of course Pleasant Street there is called after him. But the foundation stone here was laid in 1814. The cost of the building, £13,000, and Pleasance's orders, Irish materials and Irish craftsmanship, and above all, make the building fireproof. And there it is standing today. It was going very strong in the 1800s, 20s, 30s for the weavers. It was 3 fardens to dry 1 piece of cloth and 3 halfpence to dry a big lot. But the tariffs put on by England, and of course the famine, and of course when machinery came in and did away with the hand looms, the stove tenter house fell into disuse. Now, it was idle for a while, and for 2 years it was a branch of the South Dublin Union in James's Street. And then in 1861, Father John Spratt, the Carmelite priest who was born in Cork Street, took over this building as a refuge for women and children. And he ran it by himself for about 9 years. But due to all the other duties he had, he then went to the Sisters of Mercy in Baggot Street. And he asked them, would they send over a couple of nuns to run this place. And 2 nuns came in the Christmas of 1870, 1871. 2 nuns came from Baggot Street and actually slept here at this end of the building. And later, a community of nuns grew up around this place, and they built their convent and their schools. And an interesting thing about the Sisters of Mercy, they were founded by Catherine Macaulay, and she founded the convent in Baggot Street because that was the well-to-do neighbourhood of the city. And poor Catherine thought that the well-to-do neighbours would look after the poor. But shall we know in Dublin that it's the poor that keep the poor. And the Sisters of Mercy, by stealth and by silent means, go around doing their works of charity day in and day out. The home here is still a home for women. The Fever Hospital and House of Recovery, Cork Street, is today an old man's home. It was opened on the 14th of May 1804